Tonight, spotlight on the border. Our CBN News exclusive reporting, a first-hand look as thousands of desperate migrants travel thousands of miles to cross the border in the perilous journey.
It happens all day, every day.
Plus, another mass shooting.
I immediately ducked down and got scared.
The gunman and 8 others now dead in Indianapolis, and protests in the streets. After Chicago PD released body cam footage showing the police shooting and death of a 13-year-old boy. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. The situation on the southern border deteriorating with no sign of letting up. Good evening and welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup.
And I'm Jenna Browder. Tonight, our in-depth reporting of the border reveals the situation is actually worse and more serious than you might think. Every day, 6,000 illegal immigrants are flooding into the U.S., creating a hotbed of drug smuggling and human trafficking.
That's right, Jenna. And that combination puts women and little girls at the greatest risk, with up to an 80% chance of being raped. Tara Mergener has just returned from the Rio Grande Valley and has tonight's top story.
We're in the Rio Grande Valley looking across the river at Mexico. This is the busiest place for illegal immigration in the United States. It's our first visit since the change in administration, and the first time we've been told Border Patrol is not allowed to assist us. But thanks to the help of local law enforcement officials and private citizens, a glimpse at what many believe is a crisis growing out of control. Feet firmly on U.S. soil for the first time. A group of mostly Central American migrant mothers and children smiling on the homestretch. Like the 6,000 others per day reported to be going around official entries at Texas's southernmost point, they believe the journey is a success. What made you come to the United States now? Was there something you heard in your own country that made you decide this was a good time to come?
He saw in the news there was a new president and he had more opportunity.
Smugglers see more opportunity too, as they navigate dangerous rip currents racing across the Rio Grande, one after the other, hour after hour. Mexican authorities watch it happen from the water as U.S. border agents manage dozens, even hundreds at a time, while also trying to keep cameras away.
Okay, can you please not interfere in our enforcement? Because this is private property. The government does not own this property, but they're telling us we have to leave right now.
During the commotion on shore, scouts give the all clear for another crossing. The distance only about the length of a football field. This is the Mexican side of the border. In the sand, the footprints of thousands of migrants who've waited to cross into the U.S. with the help of a smuggler. It happens all day, every day. Fearing for her own safety, this resident asked we hide her identity. In the last couple months, how many rafts have you seen cross in the time you've been out here?
If I had to give you an estimate, I would say at least 60, 70 per day. Hundreds of people.
Most come from Central America, traveling weeks to get here. Nearly all claim to be fleeing violence and poverty. What will you do now that you're in the United States?
Pues aprovechar la oportunidad que se nos ha brindado ante todo, ¿verdad?
Along the way, many become victims of abuse and exploitation.
Veníamos en un bus como ese y se subieron en Veracruz. Un agente de la PGR nos revisó y nos quitó todo lo que traíamos, dinero.
Often at the hands of drug cartel members, they pay thousands of dollars to get them here.
Especially we have women and little girls coming in thousands. And we all know that women and little girls have a 60 to 80% chance of getting raped.
Not all who make the trip survive.
Sometimes see dead bodies floating and stuff because they try to make it across, or they get snagged on the bottom, or or whatever reason they don't make it.
Still, many do, including the unaccompanied children crammed into this overflowing detention facility in Donna, Texas.
Every facility we have along the southwest border is over capacity right now. Just yesterday, we had over 10,000 people in Border Patrol custody. That's much higher, especially under COVID constraints, than any facility should have.
We saw makeshift facilities like this one under a bridge intended to go undetected by media and other observers. Migrants are then sent to area shelters and in a matter of hours, free to go.
They're released so they can continue their legal proceedings here in the United States, somewhere where they're going.
Only recently is the Border Patrol confirming the record numbers being released into the U.S. without court dates, as the system grows more overwhelmed by the day. In March alone, an estimated 171,000 plus entered the U.S. illegally, 5 times more than a year ago. By year's end, the number expected to reach more than 1 million.
As soon as they get it to this side, they go ahead and flag down Border Patrol because they want to get caught, because they know they're going to get processed and then shipped out to wherever they're going to get shipped out. They're not going to get deported back to their country.
Signs of the migrant surge, like these pants left behind, are obvious on the border. But experts say the problem is increasingly being felt across the nation in areas far from the Rio Grande Valley. In South Texas, I'm Tara Mergener, CBN News.
Excellent reporting. Thank you, Tara. Well, joining us now is House Republican Conference Secretary Richard Hudson, Congressman from North Carolina. Thank you so much for being with us. I know you were just down at the border with a delegation from the GOP conference. Congressman, your impression there, are things improving? Are they worsening? Or pretty much the same as when they started to unfold a few months ago?
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you, John. And unfortunately, I can tell you things are worse than I even imagined. You know, I spent a couple days at the border last week, and it's just a horrific humanitarian crisis. And what I learned is this crisis was created on January 20th by President Joe Biden, when, with a stroke of a pen, he eliminated several policies from the President Trump administration that were actually working.
Congressman, we understand that you went into the Donna facility where they're housing hundreds and hundreds of these migrant children and migrants. What was your impression there? Can you tell us what you saw?
It was heartbreaking. You know, I'm the father of a 5-year-old boy, and I saw children my son's age, and the conditions they were in were horrific. I mean, the Donna facility was built to hold 250 children. They have what they call these pods where they divide the children up. And they were built for 33 children in each pod. One pod I visited had 450 boys in it. Another pod I visited had over 700 girls crammed in, laying on the floor under emergency blankets, almost on top of each other. And they're held in these rooms. They're only allowed outside about 30 minutes a day. And it's just horrific.
So former President George W. Bush is out with an op-ed in the Washington Post where he poses this question, Congressman. How is it that in a country more generous to new arrivals than any other, immigration policy is the source of so much rancor and ill will? The former president, he goes on to list some areas of agreement he thinks both sides can come to the table on. Things like DACA, the border, a modernized asylum system, increased legal immigration. He also says no amnesty. Congressman, do you agree with the former president on this? Are these areas you could work with Democrats on?
Well, I haven't seen his op-ed yet, but the areas you mentioned are absolutely areas that we can all agree on. I think we all agree, Republicans and Democrats, that we need to deal humanely with the people who are here. And I think we ought to all be able to agree that we should have control of our border. What the Border Patrol told me, everyone from the head of the section to the person on the line, is that the cartels control our border. As you mentioned in your story, they are the ones who transport these children and these families through Mexico and get them across the border. And what they'll do is send a group across, and then just downriver, they send the drugs across, and they send weapons and whatever else they want to send across, because they know the Border Patrol is preoccupied with those children.
Congressman, if you can, in just about 30 seconds or less, in a sentence or two, what are your thoughts on the Biden administration's pay to stay away plan?
It's a horrible idea. Those governments in the Northern Triangle can't be trusted with that money. What we need to do is bring back the common sense policies, remain in Mexico, the asylum agreement that allows people in El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras to apply for asylum there without making this terrible journey. We can end this with common sense policy.
Yeah. All right, Congressman Richard Hudson of North Carolina, thank you so much, sir. Have a great weekend. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
Thank you, Congressman. Well, tonight we're learning a 19-year-old is responsible for killing 8 people and wounding several more at a FedEx facility in Indianapolis. The deceased gunman, Brandon Scott, has been identified as an ex-employee.
And the White House says the violence must end and is calling for Congress to act. CBN national security correspondent Caitlin Burke has the latest.
Eyewitnesses say the suspect got out of his car and just started shooting. The massacre over in a matter of minutes.
When officers arrived, they found a very chaotic and active crime scene. They found several victims injured and several victims deceased, as well as the suspect who was deceased as well of an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound.
One witness, Jeremiah Miller, told Wish TV he thought at first the shots were a car muffler or an engine, but then he heard 6 to 10 more.
This made me stand up and actually look at the entrance door, and I saw a man with a submachine gun of some sort, an automatic rifle, and he was firing at in the open. And I immediately ducked down and got scared.
Authorities stress this investigation is still very much in its infancy, with officials working to figure out what happened.
Although we will learn more about this case in the coming days, and in the coming weeks, no piece of information will restore the lives that were taken or the peace that was shattered.
In the wake of this latest shooting, the White House is doubling down on its call for congressional action to cut down on gun violence.
We can't afford to wait as innocent lives are taken. That's why the president laid out a set of initial actions last week that the administration can take now, that we can take now, to address gun violence.
Biden's plan would restrict ghost guns, which are kits that allow people to legally build guns at home that can't be traced. He also proposed bans on assault weapons, as well as universal background checks.
Yet again, we have families in our country that are grieving the loss of their family members because of gun violence. There is no question that this violence must end, and we are thinking of the families that lost their loved ones.
This is the 6th public mass shooting in the U.S. in the last 5 weeks, and the 3rd mass shooting for Indianapolis this year. Caitlin Burke, CBN News.
All right, thank you, Caitlin. Well, Chicago is still reeling from protests after the release of a police shooting video showing the killing of a 13-year-old boy. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot is calling for calm as the investigation continues.
No parent should ever have a video broadcast widely of their child's last moments. Much less be placed in a terrible situation of losing their child in the first place.
The body camera footage from March 29th shows the moments the boy, Adam Toledo, was shot dead by Chicago police officer Eric Stillman. Other video shows Toledo with a gun behind his back, appearing to toss it behind a fence before putting his hands up. Stillman shot him less than a second later. Coming up, Democrats plan to make Washington, D.C. a state, passes a key step in Congress. What it means and what's next.
Come home to the sounds of Southern Gospel from CBN Radio. You'll enjoy a rich Southern blend of bluegrass, classic gospel, and Southern gospel favorites like the Gaithers, the Crabb Family, and bluegrass sounds like Mountain Faith. So make yourself at home with the all-new CBN Southern Gospel, now available at cbnradio.com.
It's about the competition.
I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations.
It's about overcoming.
We use this phrase all the time, keep chopping, keep practicing hard.
It's about going the distance.
You know, I think as a father, it's my job, you know, to lead, just be the best husband and father I can be.
Watch Going the Distance with Sean Brown Saturday night at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
And welcome back. The bill calling for Washington, D.C. to become the 51st state looks all but certain to pass when it comes up for a vote in the House next Thursday after lawmakers on the Oversight Committee advanced it earlier this week. The capital city would be called Washington Douglas Commonwealth. The measure passed along party lines with Democrats supporting it and no Republican support. Democrats argue D.C. would be a state because residents pay federal taxes, rather should be a state because residents don't pay federal taxes without representation in the federal government. The bill faces major hurdles, though, in the Senate, where it died last year. Not all Senate Democrats support it, and Republicans argue Democrats want to increase the Senate with 2 seats who will vote with that block.
And here with us now, Julia Manchester, political reporter with The Hill. Julia, great to have you with us. Happy Friday. So, you know, making Washington, D.C. a state would require a change to the Constitution. Is it possible Democrats actually pass this legislation?
You know, I think it's very, very slim chances. You know, this is a very partisan issue. You know, you have a lot of Republicans that argue Washington, D.C. should not become a state. Obviously, it would not favor them politically. And there's another school of thought that says that if Washington, D.C. becomes a state, territories such as Puerto Rico or Guam or the U.S. Virgin Islands should also become states. So there's that. But, you know, Democrats have a very narrow majority in the Senate, 60-60 plus, with Kamala Harris, the vice president, serving as that tie-breaking vote. So it really depends on what some of those moderate Democrats decide to do. Joe Manchin, for example, Kristen Sinema, will be watching those moderate Democrats. But, you know, I think it is very slim because it's seen as, you know, pretty controversial, I think, within more conservative circles.
Julia, great to see you. Along those lines, another day, another shooting, 45 in the last 30 days, according to CNN. Do these mass shootings increase the likelihood of passing new laws to restrict gun sales or increase background checks?
You know, it's really hard to tell, John, because you would think that after the 2012 Newtown shooting, where, you know, a number of little children and adults were killed in that mass shooting, that there would have been automatic change then, or change earlier, even with previous mass shootings, whether that was at Columbine or a high school in Colorado or other locations. But it seems like this is an issue that the U.S. is so divided on. Democrats very much focused on that gun control aspect, but Republicans, you know, still very much saying this is a mental health issue. So there's still quite a bit of divide. And I would also argue there's probably divide within the Democratic Party on how far they should go. In fact, with Biden's recent executive orders, you heard a lot of Democrats saying he didn't go far enough.
Julia, switching gears here, the Biden administration is catching some heat from fellow Democrats for keeping the refugee cap at levels put in place by the Trump administration. Earlier this year, it had proposed raising the number by nearly 50,000. What does that signal to you?
it signals that the situation at the border is obviously a very difficult situation, and that there is an influx that is very hard to control. And it's, worth questioning, whether the Biden administration was looking at this situation through a rose-colored lens before, Biden took office. But Biden's still blaming this on Trump, saying that we can't take more refugees at this point because we need to fix the damage that was done before. So a lot of politics at play, but Joe Biden getting hit by Democrats, Senator Dick Durbin from Illinois actually releasing a statement saying, quote, "Say it ain't so, Joe."
A lot of politics at play for sure. Julia, we always appreciate your insights on this Friday, and we wish you a happy weekend. Julia Manchester, political reporter with The Hill. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Julia.
Thanks.
Well, when we come back, how a rare discovery in Jerusalem's Tower of David is bringing the gospel to life.
Too often we carry baggage from our past. You know what it's like. It affects everything and everyone in our lives. It's always there, weighing us down and keeping us from achieving true happiness. But do you know God never meant for us to be trapped in the past? You can be free of your baggage. Learn how God's forgiveness leads to changed lives and new beginnings. Call the 700 Club.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Wednesday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel. Tikkun Olam.
This is our nature as a country.
To make the world a better place.
Literally, we felt the earth shaking.
The Christian Broadcasting Network presents To Life, how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
This film needs to be seen by everyone.
I was in tears. Now you can own the inspiring documentary To Life on DVD.
There is blood on our hands if we know and we walk away.
I'm so grateful that this film was made.
To Life can be yours for a gift of $10 or more. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
We know that every minute counts to save life.
It'll bless Israel, but it'll also bless all the friends of Israel.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are making the world a better place. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com to get your copy today.
Welcome back. A major renovation at Jerusalem's Tower of David has led to a rare discovery.
That's right, Jenna. As Chris Mitchell reports, this represents another example of modern-day Israel bringing ancient history and the Gospels to life.
Those who enter the Old City through the historic Jaffa Gate are welcomed by the visually striking Tower of David Museum. Here at the Tower of David Museum, they discovered the foundations of King Herod's palace. These stairs lead down to the pools of his elaborate complex. And many historians and theologians believe it was at this palace that Jesus was brought before King Herod and Pontius Pilate.
Right near us, the excavation of the Kishle, you can find the foundation of this palace. We have the pool, the foundation, the Fatzael Tower. So we probably know that Jesus was here during his time in Jerusalem.
And it was here that renovations led to the discovery of this rare silver Tyre coin.
This is a very strong coin, very heavy silver. That's why it's so rare. Jerusalem is full of treasures, and this is one of them.
This coin was likely used to pay the temple tax during the reign of King Herod. Elat Lieber, the director of the museum, told CBN News the discovery brings the story of the Gospels alive.
And we know from the Gospels that Jesus visited Jerusalem, and we know that he talked to the money changers. So here we have the evidence, the archaeological evidence, to the historical sources.
Another major part of the renovation is the Faisal Tower built by King Herod. Yotam Carmel heads up the conservation project.
It's important nationally, I think internationally, and also personally, but to really touch this kind of structure, moving for me, trying to preserve something and actually let it live on for future generations, and actually to do the best which is possible to keep as much original fabric as possible.
Carmel says the work Herod envisioned and ordered is exquisite.
Unbelievable. I mean, it's hard to understand how they lift, how they build, and how long it will last. I mean, it will last for thousands of years more. Unbelievable building system. Hard to get your mind around it, how it was done. It was just a massive scale of stone carving and building, which is very rare to see.
Chris Mitchell, the Tower of David Museum, Jerusalem.
Still ahead, let freedom ring. The Museum of the Bible throws an Emancipation Day celebration of historical proportions.
It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
On the home front.
Thanks for joining us for CBN's On the Home Front, where we highlight what the men and women of America's military do to defend our country. CBN honors the men and women in our military with an initiative called Helping the Home Front. It partners with churches across the country to meet the needs of their military families, from repairing homes to wiping out medical bills for wounded veterans.
Wednesday at 3 on the CBN News Channel. Get Protect Your Sleep and discover how to improve the quality of your life. A free DVD or booklet from the Christian Broadcasting Network.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
5 leading experts help remove the obstacles between you and restorative sleep.
When you don't get a restful night's sleep, you wake up with an accumulation of stress.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free DVD or booklet today.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
You'll discover how food affects your sleep, how to put insomnia to rest, explore effective remedies for sleep apnea, and much more in Protect Your Sleep. Wake up to your best life and get Protect Your Sleep today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free DVD or booklet.
Well, finally tonight, marking a major milestone right here in Washington, D.C. Today is the 159th anniversary of the end of slavery in the nation's capital.
Yeah, and the Museum of the Bible celebrated big today with the interactive exhibits for kids, special guests, and a message about why this day is still so important.
Well, Emancipation Day is still very relevant to us today. Number one, we need to know our history. So from a biblical perspective, the Bible is all about freedom, and that's something we celebrate here at Museum of the Bible.
Absolutely. Well, actors dressed as Abe Lincoln and Frederick Douglass shared their stories and wandered the exhibits with the guests. The museum showed how the fight for freedom began actually in biblical times and was carried out through men and women of God.
Well, that's our show for tonight. Thanks for watching.
Have a great weekend.